What's going on, everyone? And we are back, and we're here to do the tank, what did I name this? Yeah, just the tank tier list for Joust. What do I want to say here? Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is this tier list is sort of like going to include basically your warriors and your guardians, with a sprinkle in of a couple of gods. As you can see down here, you have like Aphro, for example, that can go tank. But yeah, that's basically sort of like the idea here. Like I said in my previous video, we're doing basically the roles in Joust, as there are basically four main roles. You got your mage, your ADC, you have your tank, and then you have your assassin, backline, tank, whatever the hell, hybrid type god you want. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm doing 4 separate videos, one encapsulating each role. And we are doing the tanks here, basically going to be guardians and warriors. But if you haven't seen my mage tier list, I basically explained that I'm doing a different approach as well. Instead of doing a one and done tier list, I'm doing 4, like I said earlier. But I am a little bit questionable on, like, basically second guessing myself a little bit, to be as blunt as possible, on whether or not I wanted to do a just one and done tier list. As I know people have asked, and I've also seen other people's comment section, that they want to see a more in-depth tier list rather than a one and done 3-hour tier list, as it can be fatiguing as well if you're just watching the entire thing. It may be better just to go to like different roles. You maybe want to watch one tier list one day, another tier list another day, skip through it a little bit. So, stuff like that. Do let me know if you like this, or you rather me go back, or you have another suggestion, for example. As I honestly do want to know your feedback, as whatever's best for you is also best for me, because in my opinion, I don't have a technical preference. So it's basically on you guys. I'm just happy to do this. So, also, if there, like I said in the other video, if there are any other gods that I may have missed, please let me know in the comment section below, as I did scour all the gods, but I do think that I got all of them, but I may have missed one that I just haven't, didn't put in on accident. So I'll address that in the comment section where I put in my explanation, stuff like that. But I think that's all I want to say. Yeah, okay. Oh, just dropped my headset on the ground. Cool. With all that being said, let's get into the tank Joust tier list. So very similar. It's going to be formatted basically the same. S is ban, A is great, A is good, so middle of the road tanks. B being subpar, not very good, and C being niche, meaning it's bad, or it's you have to have a specific, hyper specific niche team comp to make it work. So we have a little bit more gods here. I'm going to try to zip through this a little bit longer, or quicker than I did with the mage one. That one is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. But mages are arguably the best class in the game right now, in every game mode, because of the cringe mage build that I probably will be addressing on every single fucking tier list, because of how broken it is. But I'm going to try to zip through this a little bit quicker, make it like a 30-40 minute video. We'll see if I can do that. I guess you guys will know by watching this if I actually accomplish it. Achilles, I don't think he'll ever not be banned. I think he's a little bit less potent than he was before. So instead of, like, I think I have an SS tier in my other tier list. Instead of putting him there, I would have put him S tier here. I think warriors not being good in this meta, in any game mode basically, has kind of had a detriment on him. But because he's Achilles, and because they kept buffing him in Conquest and not really target nerfing him in Joust or any other game mode, I still think he does so much damage while being tanky, and having an execute is just there to, why not? They just keep upping the percentage to where he can fucking kill somebody with his ult. So still think he's going to be S. Don't think he'll ever not be S unless they fuck him over. So yeah, not much else to say. If you've seen my other videos, very similar cookie cutter shit. I think even though she's a warrior, keep in mind it's still tanks. I think Amma is good. I think she's one of the better warriors, as she doesn't follow the strictest. She can do so many things with her build. A good Amma is really hard to go up against, and if you let the Amma cook to late game, where she can get animosity axe, she fucking does so much. So I think she's one of the better warriors in general. She can definitely work in the solo lane and still be very good in Conquest. And so I think she's pretty solid in Joust. I think that's probably going to be one of the only warriors that are that are going to be that high up if I'm looking at a lot of these warriors. Yeah. But I still think she's one of the better warriors in my opinion. And she's still only good. So keep that in mind. Afro tank. I think, like I said in the mage video, if you've seen that, I put her in subpar as a full damage because I don't think she's very good at being a full damage after the rework to her kit and healing in general earlier in the season, where it kind of incentivizes her to do more tank oriented builds because, you know, you heal the same. Her kit just sort of, they made it to where her kit should be played like a tank. So that's why we had a healing meta back in the day, at the beginning of the season, as a lot of you may remember. So I think she's definitely better in the tank. She can still be shut down, just healing, you know, Beastic being buffed, a lot of target counters that have innate anti-heal like Sobek, Bacchus, even Cuchulainn, or, you know, other shit like that. Alpoish being a really exceptional one against Afro. But yeah, I think she's better as a tank, and she can be very, very fucking cringe if you go up against somebody who doesn't target the Afro. But because she is so easy to counter, I just don't think she's at that high level to where she'd be great or S. So I think she is a middle of the road, very solid tank that you'd build her with. I did air quotation marks in, even though you can't see it because I don't have a face cam, which I plan on getting soon. All right, next up we have Ares. Ooh. Do I put him top A or do I put him in ban? There are going to be so many ban guardians. This is a tough one. This is what I'll say. I'll put him in S, but I'll put him in low S. He is so fucking annoying. They nerfed him, but I remember they buffed him twice for no damn reason. He has so much stuff that goes with him. He doesn't really have an escape, but he does have this. He has a fuck ton of damage in his 1. If you hit his chains and use your 3, you can literally solo a backline. You can even like half hit a tank. With his buffs in his 2, giving him auto damage, HP 5, 30% CCR at all levels. Even more damage if you pop it before you use your 1 combo and stuff like that. He just does he has so much damage, with his passive also stacking based on aura. So if you buy an aura, he does so much fucking damage, you just get power. And on top of that, his ult, if you get blink, with Relic Dagger being in the meta a lot recently, giving it with a buff the Relic Dagger, you can blink in, ult, get somebody's beads, and if you have Relic Dagger, you upgrade your blink, you have it up literally like 40 seconds later, and you can do it again. At that point, you should have their beads already, and then you just have a free setup. On top of the fact you do so much damage, great setup, great damage. He has everything because it makes up for him not having a good getaway ability. So tanky, damage, setup, he just has it all. Has a lot of counter matchups too, because his chains fucking lock people down. Artio. I think Artio right now is subpar, unfortunately. Even with the buffs to her passive, making it to where she does basically percent damage to them. I think percent minute damage reduction, I think, based on how many abilities you hit, if I remember. I still don't think she's like as good. There are so many other guardians that do a better job than she does, as she's sort of a bruiser type of guardian that isn't really in the meta right now. Because the meta right now is your standard, you know, your standard team comp, where you have one guardian that has a lot of peel setup, when you have a mage and a hunter in the back line to basically capitalize off that. And Artio doesn't really have that consistent setup. She does have good counter matchup with her 2. She can cripple and stuff like that, but outside of those, I think she just doesn't do enough for your backline. She's good into a double tank team comp, but as you know, double tank team comp isn't great right now, so I don't think Artio does all that much as your singular tank. So I'm going to put her in subpar, because I don't think she's terrible, but she's just, there's so many other guardians that do better job than her. Athena going right, the fuck am I saying? Right to top of A+. She's so good. She's so great. Because she's an A+, great tier. She's top A because of how much setup she has. She has her ult, which actually deceptively comes in clutch a lot of times. If you play her decently enough, you can back ult in, do all sorts of stuff with her. She has great builds for it. You can use Relic Dagger on her now. Setup is fucking amazing with her too. You have a lot of wombo combos with her. Can get beads easily. She has a lot of mobility in her one. She does a decent amount of damage, not as much damage as you would think. Like, she can't solo a fucking squishy unless they're like one shot. And I think that's where she kind of goes downfall, because Ares can do that, Bacchus can do that, Cabrakan can do that, Charon can do that. So I think that's one of the pitfalls that she has. Is her damage. If she did a lot more damage to where she can solo a squishy, she'd be instantly BS. But because of the amount of CC she has, like one of the best CC setups in the game, she can basically easily set up, peel, and win games based on that. That's basically what she's there for. She's always omnipresent because of her ult too, which I deceptively didn't think was all that great last time with Athena when I put her in the tier list. But she's borderline S in my opinion, and I think she's underrated. Atlas. I think Atlas is underrated too. I hate seeing Atlases in my game. I'm going to put him top A. Now that might cause a little bit of distress to some of you people. Like, why are you putting Atlas in fucking top A? What the fuck is wrong with you? He's S. I think he's S too. But because of how many fucking Guardians that are going to be an S, I think, I mean, like, he's still top A. He has so much setup. He has damage. He's one of the best gods in order to do damage. Great setup, great peel, great damage, and has a decent getaway ability. He has an ult that prot shreds as well. I would say the only thing is that he can get caught out pretty easily, as he does have a dash, but it's not like an instant dash like Athena, for example. He has to run, so you can get caught. I mean, Athena can get body blocked with her one too, but it's a lot harder to do. Because it is a instant dash. So he can get caught out, but he's so oppressive. He does so much damage, so much poke. I almost want to put him in S. And if we don't have a lot of gods in S tier, like, I'm thinking I'm going to put him in S because he's so fucking good. Bacchus, I think he is S tier. He's probably bottom S in my opinion. But I still think that he's, my God, he has so much damage. Has his ult actually, surprisingly, his fucking, I knew this before, his drunk effect is so much more oppressive against your hunters, because as a hunter you're trying to aim and auto. So I've gotten ulted by Bacchus as a hunter, and a lot of times I literally can't do anything, even though, like, I'm still there. He didn't do that much damage to me, even though it does a decent amount of damage. I'm still able to fight, but because I can't hit an auto with his drunk effect, it makes it a lot harder to do, to hit abilities. So I think Bacchus is bottom S. He's so good. Setup, CC, his getaway ability is one of the best. His knockup is, I think, the biggest knockup, or if not ties with a lot of them who have the biggest knockup. But he's so fucking good. Yeah, he has everything you want: damage, setup, getaway, peel, and yeah, that's basically what you want in a fucking Guardian, especially in the meta that we're in right now. Baron. So I'm gonna put him in great again. I don't know this. I don't remember. I don't think this changes much from. I'm not putting him in order, by the way. I think Baron is a little bit better as your tank, with like maybe like in one or two items with damage, for example, like a Chronos Pendant or something. But I think he does far better as the tank, as you can, throw out your abilities and shit, and sort of help your team. I don't know if he's necessarily the greatest solo tank. But he's definitely high up there. You can still do the cringe mage build, but this is a tank build, so I still think he does so much damage with the tank build anyways, that going the pure damage path isn't the greatest for Baron. But as a tank, I still think he, like I said earlier, I'm not going to re-explain everything in my mage one. I think basically what I said was that just, he has so much setup in his 3, healing, a lot of damage, and setup with his ult, and it makes up for his getaway, as he can has movement speed in his 2 if you get hit by it as well, or if you hit somebody with it. So Baron's top A+, not top of A, but he's like middle, low A+, in my opinion, as the tank. Bellona, niche, she's really bad. There was a point where you would say like Bellona, Ama is a better version of Bellona, and that's definitely true. But Bellona currently, I think she has the worst win rate in Joust, if I'm not mistaken, or at least before they updated it at 10.12. which kind of shows you how bad she is. She doesn't have setup. You can get away from her very easily. I mean, she's good against hunters, but she gets fucking CC railed and she's just dead. So that won't even matter. So she's just really bad in my opinion right now. And why would you pick Bellona when you have Amma or any of the other gods? Cab, S tier. I'm not entirely sure where I'd put him in S tier, but he just has everything as well. Great setup. So much CC in his build, in his abilities. His 1-2 stun, his 2 stuns based depending on damage you take, but they're both stun. It's great setup. His ult can very much counter like any of your top gods, like Baron, for example. You can counter him. Thoth, Agni, any of those gods that can't jump over things, you can definitely counter. They have to buy upgraded shell as a tank to counter him. And even if gods don't have that, like for example Persephone, I know she can jump over his ult, but if you catch her, you know, jumping away and you have your ult blink up, or for example on Cab, which you should always be majority of the time building is blink, you can blink ult and you know she's fucked. So he does so much fucking damage. You don't even need to go damage build. The build I like to go is Sand of Time, Gauntlet, Manticore Spikes, Relic Dagger, Pridwin, and then Stone of Binding. And you don't have any damage in there basically except for your Sands of Time, but because of your damage you get from Manticore Spikes and Stone of Binding, you do so much damage as him anyways, while also being able to set up too. So you basically have infinite fucking cooldowns on your relics, and if you upgrade your relics it's even quicker. So he's just so oppressive if played right, and you don't even need to play him that well for him to be that oppressive to begin with. So definitely S tier. Always is a good god that you can always be like, well, I don't know what to go here. Cab's open, I can pick Cab. Cab works here too. Cab works in almost any team comp, so definitely S tier. Cerberus, I'd put him in A. He's sort of like a botch version of any of the other top guardians. He's more of a bruiser, not similar to Artio, but not the same. He has a little bit more setup in his ult, and he has a little bit of a stun. It's a little bit more of a skill thing with his 1, but played right, he can still be very good. And so yeah, I think he has a lot of potential in his ult. If you blink ult, you can get somebody's beads. Although if somebody has a knockup immune in their kit, they can instantly fucking counter that. So if you're a Thor, or if you're playing Daji, for example, you can use your knockup immunity in his ult and you'd be good. But other than that, I think he's still a pretty solid god. He has Prot Shred. He has safe get away with his 3. So yeah, very solid middle of the road guardian. Chaac, I'm gonna put him in subpar. I was gonna put him in niche, but with the amount of damage that they got, I think top of subpar. He's has so much damage. I don't know if I've seen this in the SBL correctly, but I think they were playing him as a fucking jungler due to the amount of buffs that they've been giving him consecutively over each patch. If you guys don't know, I think he got like 3 or 4 buffs in a row just on all of his damage, cooldown, different gimmicks. I think they added or something spicy to him. I can't remember. But he does a lot of damage, and I felt it when they buffed him this last patch, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy does a lot of damage. I still don't think Chaac does much of anything outside of damage. If you're gonna play him, I think you should play him more like trying to kill the backline, because that's basically all you can do is Chaac. Yeah, he's subpar, not that great, but that's gonna be a lot of warriors, as you'll see. Charon, top of S. Like your top 3 guardians in Joust. He's just so good. He's actually like, he's so fucking broken, dude. His 1 is a silence, does a lot of fucking damage. His 2 gives him shields, and his team shields based on anyone who attacks him or damages them. It does other shit too, I can't remember, but it does so much shit. His 3 is a root, knockup immune, and is the longest fucking dash in the world, does a fuck ton of damage. Use all of that, use all your abilities on like a squishy, for example, you half hit them without building any damage. And that's before you build something like Stone of Binding or Manticore Spikes, which I think you guys should always be building on him. Manticore Spikes is broken on him. Please do that. And then of course his ult. His ult is probably the best in the game. It's so hard to dodge in Joust because of how narrow everything is. So if you're like in the middle of the team fight and he's right in front of you, and you're trying to kill him or whatever, you're most likely going to get hit by that. It does a lot of damage, considerably for the fucking ability as he's a guardian. It fears you into them basically, which is great setup. So he does so much damage. He has everything you want in a guardian. He's basically Cab, but with the ability to fucking have a good mobility. Just imagine if Cab had great mobility and everything else. He's just like that. He's just so fucking good. He's so tanky, you know, he has everything. So he's you have to ban him. If you're not going to play him, you don't have first pick, you got to ban him because he's so fucking annoying, so hard to go up against. Yeah, ban this god. Cthulhu, I'm going to say he's, oh god, this fucking god. I'm going to say he's low A. I think Cerberus is better than him. He's similar to Cerberus in that he can go in the solo lane and do a fuck ton of damage. But the problem is that he's not fitting that guardian role. Like, he is a guardian, of course, but he doesn't have a lot of setup besides his 2 and his 3. And outside of that, he's just a damage god in his ult. He has a little bit of setup, but not consistent setup like the other gods you have. And in this meta, when we're in your traditional team comp, you're going to want a god that has consistent setup and peel, and Cthulhu has barely any peel at all. His abilities are pretty easy to hit, which is why he's a good bruiser, but outside of that, I don't think he's like all that great. I almost want to put him in subpar, but I'm going to put him low bottom barrel A, as I still think he still can do things, but you have to play him correctly. Chulainn, I'm going to put him in A as well. I think I'm going to put him top A. I think he does so much damage. I've been playing him recently. He's my top worshipped god. He's not my favorite currently, but he definitely, the amount of damage he does is absurd. With them buffing his abilities as well as nerfing or buffing the cooldown on his ult and stuff like that, everything comes up so fast. You do a fuck ton of damage, and I think he's one of the only other viable warriors right now outside of like your other ones that we'll see earlier, that I think are really good. He does so much damage. The only thing is that Chulainn always suffers from the fact that he falls off late game, and I think there are a lot of other gods or tanks that do it better, that don't fall off late game, that can still fuck up those backline gods. So early games he's a menace, so you have to play for the snowball, which is why I think he is good. But if you get super ultra late game, he kind of falls off really hard. So keep that in mind. I still think he's A, as he's probably one of the better guardian or warriors, right now. So I'm gonna put him in A. Erlang Shen as a tank is dog shit. The worst god in the game. He's gonna come up one more time, and I still don't think he's that good. After they got rid of his 3 and his knockup, he's just never been the same. You can make him work, you can make any god work, but he's dog shit as a tank. He does nothing. He has a stun in his 2, and he has a fucking taunt in his ult that Athena gets in her 2 at like every 8 seconds. No, Erlang's dog shit. Don't play this god. If you play this god, you're a shitter. I'm kidding. I'm half kidding, but like, don't play this god as a tank. Please don't. My god, don't play this god. Eset, very solid god. I think she's an A+. I think I put her in subpar in my damaged god. I'm gonna put her like middle of the road, even though, again, I'm not fucking putting them in order. I think she's a better tank. She uses her 3 to silence. It gives your ally shields. Her ball has very good setup. And you know, she has like everything else I told you. Her ult does a lot of things. I can't remember everything, but I know it heals. So it has a lot of outplay and peel setup potential with her ult. So I think she's a way better tank, and I think she's a middle of the road tank if you play her right. And so yeah, I think she's average good guardian tank type play, type god build thing. Yeah. So yeah, middle of the road A. Fafnir, where do I want to put Fafnir? I think I'm gonna put Fafnir in A. I was gonna put him in A+, but he's only really A+ once you start getting up higher in the MMR. I've seen him played at a very high level, like your top MMR Masters GM. I've gone up against a couple of them, and they are oppressive as fuck. He can he can one-shot a squishy with all of his kit. He does so much fucking damage while being tanky and being extremely safe. So I think Fafnir is a solid pick. I think he has a little bit of a high skill ceiling because of his hammer. You have to play it very safe and patient because he doesn't really do much early game besides stun, which does have setup, but outside of that, he's very, very... You have to wait. You have to wait for him and be patient for him to get your ult online, get a couple items online, to when then you can actually start doing things. He's very good into this meta as well. I'm going to put him a little bit higher because... whatever, he's a bit higher in A, as he's very good in this meta, as he does help and give more damage to hunters and stuff like that with his too. So yeah, a little bit high skill ceiling, but I still think he's a very solid pick. If you're ever going to be in that high masters GM area, I suggest you know, picking him up because I think he's very good. Or if you ever see him, just know that it might be a menace who's playing this. So either way, he's still very good at the very least. Ganesh. I think Ganesh is S tier. I don't care what any of you say. Ganesh, I'm putting him low S tier, but he has so much shit. If you're not going to get Charon, Ganesh I think is the next best thing. His ult does so much fucking damage, as a lot of you know, has great setup. His silence is one of the best things about him. He counters almost everybody. He does so much damage. He has so much setup with his 3. He has a lot of damage in his 1 too. And you know, small things like giving your allies sister kills can make them, you know, snowball even harder. So that's cool too, just having back pocket without even like being, you know, a core part of why you play him. But I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, this will be a good team come to go up against with ours, and then they last pick Ganesha because we forget to ban him or target ban him because of the team we have, and we're like, oh, okay, so we just don't do anything anymore now because they have a Ganesh. They silence everything that we do. Easy setup, ult does 1,000,000 damage, so I'm telling you, this god is so good. If you don't play him enough, you should. He's not the most fun god, but he definitely does the job really fucking well if you play him correctly. So I would suggest picking him up. I think he's S-band. He's so fucking good. Geb, I would put in high A. Similar to Atlas. No, not similar to Atlas. I'd say similar to Athena. He does a decent amount of damage. You have to be patient with him because the early game is not going to be in your favor unless they royally fuck up. But Geb doesn't have a lot of damage with his 1, 2, and 3 early into the game. You have to wait until you get a couple items online, similar to Fafnir, and then you get your ult online. Then you can actually start doing a couple things later the game goes. But really, he's there to support your gods. He has a lot of setup and peel and a decent amount of damage. So with Geb, you want to make sure you knock them up for peel and setup. You ult for peel and setup by blink on him to, you know, set up really well. And then his 3, you want to make sure you play your 3 right, because a lot of the times, especially when I play, I'm always watching when the Geb uses his 3, as that's when I'll go in, maybe I'll try to bait out his 3, and that's when I'll actually go in and wait for that to go off so that I know that I can kill them for free. So play your 3 correctly, and you know, he's so fucking hard to go up against. Extremely tanky, does a decent amount of damage, surprisingly. Not as much as Atlas, for example, but you know, in my opinion, very solid, really good, great god in terms of your guardian, your traditional type of guardian. Gilgamesh, honestly, I was gonna put him in B, but I think he's low A. I think he's actually a solid warrior. I don't think, if you're gonna play him, you have to play him correctly. So actually, I'm gonna put him in B. A lot of people don't really play him correctly in Joust. You want to level up his 2, for example. You want to build him as a tank. You don't want to build him attack speed. Attack speed is nice, but it's not core for him. You want to be able to set up with your ult, your 1, and stuff like that. But not a lot of people do that. So I would say that Gilgamesh is B subpar because he doesn't have a high skill ceiling. He's very simple to play, but somehow some people don't really know how to play him like the best way in Joust. So I would put Gilgamesh top B. Guan Yu, I'm also going to put top B. Guan Yu used to be one of the best warriors in Joust. It's crazy how far he's dropped, actually. He still can do things with his prot shred. But with a lot of these guardians, you can tell that fucking counter him. Charon silence, Bacchus burp, Cabrakan stun, Ganesha silence, Athena taunt, you know, all this other shit that he just gets fucking washed, in my opinion. And on top of that, warriors aren't that great right now, so it's not like he's doing hot anyways. So, and it's not necessarily his kit. There was always so many counters to him anyways. But with warriors, like I said, not being that great, it kind of makes him even worse. Why would you have a Guan Yu like that when you can have a very easier gods like Charon or Cabrakan or Bacchus that do the job way better than Guan Yu? So I think he's B. Herc, I think Herc is top A, almost borderline A plus. I think he's fallen off a lot. And that's just because warriors. Most of these warriors have fallen off. I still think he's really good if you are good with Herc. He's still very oppressive. He does a lot of damage with his stun. He has a lot of fucking setup and peel. I just think that he gets shredded by hunters. So if you ever get late game, he can be good, but you have to be very careful and pick your battle, because if you use your 1-2 combo and you miss or whatever, and a hunter is on you, you're kind of fucked because you don't have anything else to do. Now, when he was really good in your double tank team comp, that's different because he could do whatever the fuck he wants because there was no hunter to fucking shred him. Yeah, I think with the recent changes also making mages tanky as hell, he doesn't do anything to them either. So outside of that, I think, you know, if you're a good Herc, then I think he's very good, like great. But if you're not, then I think that he's just a solid, okay, middle of the road god, warrior, whatever. Horus, I think Horus is A+. He's basically a guardian, in my opinion. He's a guardian that does a lot of fucking damage. So I think he's top A+, in my opinion. One of the only warriors that are really good here. Tremendous damage early game, a lot of pressure. He's so hard to kill too because he has a dash, he has a 3, he has an ult, he has 3 ways to get away. One of them being his 3 that actually heals and then also makes him untargetable. Unless he got like hit prior, like a Chiron auto or something. It'll eventually reach him or whatever with his 2 or something. But you know, outside of that, he's very hard to kill. Has so much damage, has so much setup. You know, has great getaway, heals, you know, all that shit too. So he's basically a guardian. That's why he's good. Very traditional, solid warrior. Jormungandr, I'm gonna put low A as well. No, I'm putting him in B. I can't put him in A. I think Cthulhu is better. Cthulhu at least has... Sorry. I just burped. Anyways, Jormungandr, I think, is a little bit worse than Cthulhu because Cthulhu actually has some setup and does more damage, I think, in my opinion. Jormungandr, outside of that, has an ult that makes you leave the fucking game, basically. You're just up and down 3 times while the fucking enemy team is just fucking your backline or some shit like that. You can't do anything besides ult. So I think, you know, he's not that good in terms of that. He doesn't have really good setup, and I don't think the bruiser guardians right now are in the meta anyways, so I think he's not that good, and I put him in subpar. Kephri, I'm putting him in niche. He's bad. Does 0 damage. His ult is his only saving grace. And outside of that, that's basically it. You're just an ult bot that saves your team, but you're basically 2v3ing because Kephri only has setup in his 1. And if you know anything about fucking plucking a hunter, if you don't have setup to where you can fucking instantly burn the hunter is gonna kill you because you can still auto in the fucking Kephri pool. He just does no damage. He's an ult bot that just stalls out the game, and his setup is dog shit compared to any of the other ones. Don't play this god. I'd rather a Kephri than the other gods, though, in my opinion. King Arthur, subpar. Almost want to put him in niche. Low subpar. He's not that good unless you're a really good King Arthur. Seen some really good King Arthurs, but a lot of people don't play him right. He's fucking mashing. You just mash your abilities, but at the same time, if you don't mash them with cerebral intentions, then you're not gonna do good with him. He doesn't have great setup outside of his ult, which he does have very consistently, but I think King Arthur is not in a really good spot anyways, and he wasn't really good in Joust to begin with either. So King Arthur just Not that good. I'd rather have a Cuchulainn than a fucking King Arthur or a Gilgamesh or a Guan, in my opinion. Okay, Kumbakharna. I think Kumba is top A. I don't think he's A+. I just think he just doesn't do enough damage. He does damage, but just I don't think he does enough to warrant him to be higher than A. I mean, he has tremendous CC with him having a cripple in his 2, his ult, throwing them up in the air. You can very much, you know, synergize that with like a Cuckoo or Raw ult, for example. Not as good as Neja, but yeah, I think his CC is top tier, but I don't think it's going up against all the other ones, even though they're really fucking cringe. Like his yawn and his cripple in his 2 is really cringe, but I think these guys do it better because they also do damage, and that's why I think Kumba falls off, is he doesn't do enough damage. He's still solid, he can still be worked around, you can still play him well and do a lot of shit with him, but you know, I just don't think he's top of the food chain in my opinion. Here's the best god in Joust. We have Kuzenbo outside of Charon. I don't really know what I need to say about this god outside of he's busted as hell. He does so much damage, especially is very good against hunters because he uses his 2 and they killed themselves. Can't tell you how many times I played X-Ball or Hachi where I went up against a Kuzenbo because I forgot to ban him, and whenever he would use his 2, I'd auto him. I'd do a lot of damage to him, but I would look at my health bar and I'd be half health without him doing anything. He does so much fucking damage. His 2 also resets his cooldowns. His 3 is really good. Does so much damage too if you hit minions or something, or an enemy god, if you push them through them. And it's a great setup as well. What does he have? He has the best damage out of all the Guardians, in my opinion. He has really great setup, really great peel with his 3 and his ult. The damage part of it, I meant to say at the beginning, is his 2, because you don't even need to do anything. You just press your 2 and you die. You basically, when he gets full build or like late game or even mid game, you just have to be like, hey, he's using his 2. Let me just wait out his 2, which is really bad because that sets up for their backline. So damage, peel setup with his 2 and his ult. What else does he have? He has great cooldowns. I mean, the best cooldowns I think out of any Guardian, because with his 2 he can just reset everything. He's just the best tank, in my opinion. If you're not playing him in the lower ranks, which I don't see him played a lot, play him. You can carry games. Just play the early game. Play the early game patient, as he does it online a little bit later into the game with his build as well. But the best god out of all the tanks. Maui, I'm gonna be honest, Maui is low-key ass. I'm gonna put him in niche. I don't think he's as bad as the other gods. Like, I think I'd rather have a Maui than a Kephri. Maui doesn't do any damage outside of his ult. His setup is kind of worthless with his 1. His 3 is very easy to dodge. You can't really do anything about that. His 2 doesn't do jack shit for fucking Joust. Even the effects that it gives you, he's just really bad in my opinion. I think it's just the damage, and he doesn't have consistent good peel or setup. He's just not that great in my opinion. You can counter a lot of shit he does very easily. Mulan, I'm gonna put in high A. Mulan, God, Mulan does so much damage early game and late game. She actually scales well, which she used to not be able to scale well, but she does. I'm almost tempted to put her in A+. But I'm gonna put her top A just for now, because I think that she does so much damage. She has really good setup with her 3. She has a really good getaway with her ult. So she has everything, but I think she doesn't have that consistent setup and peel that you would be looking for in another tank. For example, Cuchulainn can get away with it because his damage is just so fucking crazy with his... He just has like 8 abilities up. And he actually has a decent amount of CC with his 1 and his ult. And then 3 in his big boy form, of course. Mulan does a really good damage. She can definitely snowball late game or early game and be good into the late game, but I still think she has a little bit of flaws that make her not, you know, top of the food chain in my opinion. Nike, I'm gonna put in low A, middle of A, the row A. I think Nike has decent setup, has decent damage, but she basically just stalls out the game. You have to play her correctly in order for her to work. You have to damage the backline, and really focus on them. Just poke them out to make it to where they can't do anything, and then also set up for the backline as well. But she just doesn't have setup or peel. She basically is a selfish god in my opinion, because of her ult. She makes herself invincible basically because of her fucking shield that she gets, but she doesn't do too much for the backline for her team. She basically plays like an assassin in my opinion. I mean, she does have a decent amount of peel with like her 2, for example, but I don't think it's enough to outclass any of the other gods above. But she is pretty solid in my opinion. Nox, remember I told you she was niche in the mage tier list. I think that she's probably subpar, top to subpar, almost good, because you do have a lot more margin of error to miss abilities and stuff like that, because you are going tank. But she does, like I said, have a high skill ceiling, so if you aren't hitting your abilities, don't play this god. But you can have more room for error to play her as a tank, as you will be tankier, so you won't die if you miss one combo, for example. Odin, I'm gonna say, is subpar too. I think he has some good counters like healing, for example, with his ults, or gods that don't have a lot of getaways. A lot of the tanks will have to buy upgraded shell, but other than that, I don't think he's that good of a warrior outside of those counters. He does a decent amount of damage, but like I said, warriors aren't that great right now, so outside of those counter matchups, I don't think he's all that great. I think he's subpar. Osiris, I'm going to put in subpar too. He just doesn't do too much, even with the buffs and everything, all the buffs he's gotten. He's a lane bully, but I don't think he, unless you're played right, because you can have a good Osiris play correctly, like backlining and stuff, playing safe as well, but I think he just gets shut down too easily. He tries to go up against a hunter or a mage. First of all, they're just going to shred him, and then on top of that, your guardian should be there to just stun them out or whatever. And he is auto attack based, although he can be played ability based. He just doesn't really feel all that great in this current meta, in my opinion. Shiva instantly goes up to right to where Horus is. He's definitely played just like a fucking just like a guardian, very similar to Horus, as his 2 is a knockup, or no, his 2 is a knockup, and then his 1 is a, what would you call that, a suck in, a knock, a pull? Would you call it a pull? I think that'd be a pull. And he does so much damage with Runeforge. I meant to mention that with Horus as well. Runeforge is really good with him, and so yeah, I think they're really fucking good just because of they play like guardians, because they do damage and they set up really well. He has an ult that's really good as well too, so definitely tank, Runeforge, Heartseeker, stuff like that was really good on him. And then obviously rest tank. Sobek has fallen from grace. I think, not really fallen from grace, but I think he's not as good as he once was. I think he is probably middle of the road in A+. I still think he's really good, has great setup. I just think he has a little bit more counter matchups that he didn't used to have, to where he was basically unpunishable. I think one thing about him that sucks is that if you miss your pluck, you're basically out in the open, which makes him really easy to punish. Easiest. And even if you do hit somebody, depending on who you hit and you pluck back, you can still be punished. As you know, you pluck someone back, if your team isn't necessarily there or don't have the damage to do so, then the person that you plucked can then collapse back onto you, and you're basically just being sandwiched by enemy team. So that's his downfall. It made him a little bit worse than he was initially. I'm not entirely sure why that changed so drastically. I just noticed it based on the bursts that we've been having in this meta with your mage and your hunters, just basically destroying him for free. So definitely still a good pick, but I don't think he's as good as he once was in your ban category. Now you can still ban him, but I would only ban him if there's like a potential matchup that he's like really good into. Other than that, he's just a solid guardian. Great. Solid guardian is what I mean. Sun Wukong's a little bit better than I used to think he was. I still think he's subpar. He's probably top B. But if you're going to play him as the tank, I don't think he's all that great. He's gonna show up one more time, and I think he's a little bit better in that tier list. But no, he's just not that good as a tank. In fact, I'm gonna put him lower because I was thinking about his other build. I think he's low B if you're building him tank, as like the solo tank or whatever, or double tank even. I don't think he's all that great. You don't do enough damage with this build. Your setup is kind of meh, and some Wukong hasn't been the greatest in Joust really ever, in my opinion. So, bottom of the barrel in B. Surtur's bottom of the barrel B2. He's just not good. I don't know what it is. I think maybe if I'm thinking about it, his ult's fine. He can get out. He's kind of hard to kill in that regard, but he basically just stalls out the game. He's a lane bully, but you have to get near them to actually bully them. And when you're 3v3ing almost all the time, you're not gonna be able to do that, as the Guardian's just gonna fucking fuck you up. Now, early in the game, you may have a little bit of pressure, but as the game goes on, similar to Chulainn, you fall off greatly if you don't play him right. And generally speaking, a lot of people don't play him at a high level, even though he isn't really a high skill ceiling god, in my opinion. He's just not that great. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about him. I don't think there's really anything else about him that's noteworthy. I just don't think he's all that great, in my opinion. Sylvanas, I'm gonna put him top B. I think Sylvanas has great outplay potential. You know what? I'm gonna put him low A. I think that's a little bit disgraceful to put him there. I'm gonna put him low A, as I think he does have good setup with his ult, has a very large knockup, has decent healing, has a stun, has a grab. If you can get that grab, you're a legend. Like naked, if you just throw it out and you grab somebody. So there's a lot of outplay with that, but he is very hard to play in terms of that. But generally speaking, he doesn't do that much damage. He doesn't have any type of getaway, so you have to rely on your stun, your root, sorry, I'm saying stun, your root and your ult. And as a Sylvanas, in order to get away, that kind of feels bad when you have to use all those abilities for that. So I'm going to put him low A, as I still think he does have a lot of peel, a lot of setup, and a decent amount of damage. Not the greatest amount of damage, but also he has really bad getaway, in my opinion. Terra, I think, is A+. I think she's a sleeper god. I think she has so much, if you play her right, she's high skill ceiling as well. She has so much damage. She has a lot of peel and setup with her 2 and her 3 and with her dash. Her ult makes her do a lot of damage as well. She has great getaway. You can use your 1 twice if you hit one of your stones. I think she has everything. Her damage isn't the best, but she does a lot of fucking damage if you play her right. So I think that Terra is a sleeper pick, and I've seen those higher end GM master players play Terra like a fucking madman, and that's what I'm talking about when I think like Terra is very underrated. She's so fucking good and really hard to go up against if they play Terra correctly. Tiers subpar, low subpar, in my middle subpar. I put a middle subpar right around the Gilgamesh, Chaac, Guan Yu. He has good setup damage, maybe peel if you consider that, if you're trying to peel them away, but generally speaking, you don't play tier for setup. You play tier to do a fuck kind of damage and push them out of position. So I guess it's kind of setup, but not really the type of setup you're looking for, as it's a little bit hard to do if you don't have blink. It's not consistent like fucking Bacchus or Cabrakan or Charon, for example. You have to like blink in. You have to do some extra shit because you can't do that under a tower. And in like a single lane like that, as tier, you're not gonna be able to do much of anything, in my opinion. So he's basically low, middle, subpar, in my opinion. Vamana is gonna go straight into there too. I think he's a little bit higher though. Vamana can have a decent amount of outplay, as he's a fucking baby, but I think a big baby when he ults. But I think that with all the nerfs that he's gotten, with warriors not being that great, with him being able to get shredded very easily, going up against your tank mage builds, he's just not going to be seen a lot. So I think he is basically subpar, right around your Odin and Gilgamesh and Tyr, for example. Xing Tian, I think, is top A, if almost A plus. You know what? I'm gonna put him in A. I'm gonna put him top A. I think he is very, very, very fucking good. He has decent setup. I'm sorry, decent. He has really good setup. He has a really great getaway with his leap, having 2 of those charges, 2 charge leap, he has 2 leaps basically. And as you leap once in his 3 and you have a second leap with that. He has a very good CC immune ult that can get people's beats. It's a little harder to do because it is very telegraphed, which probably makes him not as good. And he's good against hunters because his 1 does a decent amount of damage, does ticks, and then also reduces auto attack damage for a little bit as well. So I think he's a very solid, very good, top of the tier of A type of guardian. Yamaja's dog shit. I think she has the worst win rate out of all guardians. She's just not very good. You can fucking get Shell to counter her, or upgraded Shell if she ults correctly, and even if she does, yeah, you have Shell. There's a lot of gods that jump out of it anyways. She's very high skill ceiling, and a lot of people who play Joust don't really play her at a high level. There's just nothing about her. She doesn't do good damage. Her setup is dog ass because it's high skill ceiling. You only have like this. She's really bad. Don't play her unless you're just trying to have fun. Ymir, I think, is A+, top A+, with the Relic Dagger being upgraded on top of you having, stunning or blink stunning. That stun is so fucking long. Has a great damage with his 2, great damage in his ult. And if you place your walls correctly, he is high skill ceiling in terms of his wall placement. But if you play him really good, he's like really fucking hard to go up against. He's not really high skill ceiling in general. He's pretty easy, self-explanatory. But I think you play Ymir a little bit enough to where you know how to position his walls and shit. I think Ymir is really hard to fuck with. He doesn't have a really good getaway, but because everything else makes up for it with his stun, his walls that can really fuck up like a lot of people's abilities because it is a wall, an object or whatever that's in the way. So if you don't have an ability that goes through walls, then you can't fucking damage him or whatever. So I think there's a lot of outplay, great setup, great damage that makes up for it, his lack of a getaway. But yeah, I'm putting him in relatively top A. Again, these aren't in order. But with that, we have our guardians. I'm at 50 minutes, 52 minutes, so a little bit over time, not as long as the other one, but looking back at this, yeah, there are a lot of guardians that are really good. These are the ones that I would consider banning. Guardian warriors, sorry. I'm just so used to banning guardians because guardians are probably one of the best classes in the game in Joust. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential bans that I think are really good. And then you still have like Atlas. You still have Shiva, although Shiva isn't really a good ban. Sobek. These gods right here that are still there that can fuck up your day even after you ban all these gods. And you can't ban all these gods because that would require everyone to ban a fucking guardian. That's not really going to happen. So yeah, I think this is a majority. Yeah, I'm looking through this. I think this is pretty good. I probably, if I were to look back at this, I might tweak a couple of them to go up like maybe a tier. And those are the ones that I'm like, maybe you can argue A+, or maybe you can argue like B if they're in A or something like that. Something like that, like Cthulhu, for example. But yeah, that is your tank. So and this encapsulates most of your tanks. All of your tanks actually that can go tank for the most part. So your warriors, your guardians, and then you have like a mage here. They're like Baron and Afro, for example, and Nox. But yeah, that is your tank Joust tier list. Again, let me know how you feel about this. I can always go back to the singular, straight up, one and done tier list if you want. If you like this, then I'll continue doing this. As like I said, I'm just here to have a good time, or whatever the fuck that cringe term is. But yeah. That's it. So if you guys have any suggestions, feedback, let me know in the comment section down below. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching.